Yeah, that was good. I think audio issues seem to be the theme of the week for
Yeah,
us.
I had well, it seems like a gotchi related thing. So District 420, I had both audio and visual issues. I have to go and kind of look at everything on my end. And then Zombie Shepherd, he had some kind of issue during the hangout so that he only got, I believe, the first hour. For some reason, the second hour didn't record, which sucked because I wanted to sample some of the basically Coder Dan announcing the stress tests that's happening Tuesday, but I couldn't. We couldn't get that. Couldn't get it back. But you know, it happens sometimes. You know, it's probably some retrograde bullshit or something.
I hear you on that. I mean, I'm not a audio expert by any means, but I feel like I've had to learn quite a bit just to like hook my stuff up in a way that works.
Yeah, it's good. Good old growth. That's what we're doing here. Sunday nights. GotchiSpace growth.
It really is growth, man. How's your week been so far?
My week has been good. I've become like a mini fitness nut in my last few months. So this week I've taken like a 4 or 5 day break from the bar, which has been amazing. I'm going to go back. I'm not giving up on drinking and socializing. But for the last 4 or 5 days, I've been more focused on just like me and like doubling down on diet and exercise and like so like every day I try to intermittent fast. So like for this week, since I've been going to the bar, I've been able to actually do it. And then what I've been trying to do is wake up at like 8 in the morning, and while I'm still on that fast, like work out, like hit my little like calisthenic routine, and then I'll get breakfast, and then come back, and then go play basketball for a couple hours, and maybe work out again. So I've been very much thinking on fitness lately.
Are you working on your vertical, your jump?
Yeah, I'm. When I was younger, I was close. I'm only 5'8", so I'm pretty short. But when I was a teenager, I used to play a lot of basketball, and I can get up and almost dunk. Like I couldn't get the ball through the hoop, but I can grab rim. Now I'm probably like 3 or 4, maybe 5 inches short of rim. But I
Dang,
think I can get back up there. Like I can definitely hit backboard very easily.
that's really cool. I mean, it's been a while since I've done stuff like that, but that's definitely working on the calisthenics will definitely help you out with your one-on-ones that you have with the local kids at the basketball court.
Yeah, today I actually played against a guy that was like in his early 20s, and we were playing full court one-on-one, and I beat him 4 out of 6 games. I won the first three, and then I was like winded. He won the next two, and then I won the last one for the best of seven. But it was good. It was like, all right, this is good. And like his friends were like, "Damn, you've lost weight." And I'm like, "Damn right." Like I've been running around in the snow playing basketball when no one else is out. So like somebody's got to do it, right?
That's pretty cool though that you've recognized fitness as like such an important part of all this because like you're basically like a metaverse guy now, right? So like you're basically living like in the metaverse almost, like where you're gonna be you're gonna be in the Gotchiverse for the most part, and then you'll be doing some content stuff on the side and like everything that we're gonna be doing is gonna be at a stationary like computer. So I feel like fitness is gonna be like a big concern probably as like the metaverse becomes more like widespread and goes mainstream. I think there's going to be like this reemergence of like these shows where they're like, look at this guy in the metaverse. He survives on Big Macs and never leaves, and there's like this whole intervention around it where they have to like get him out of the metaverse, get him on his fitness routine and then get his life back together. I
I
think it's
feel
going
like
to happen.
that's really going to be a thing because think about it like for me I'm mostly I mean I don't work essentially this is work for me but I'm mostly sitting around doing nothing so I try to at least be active for 1 hour a day with like at least 1 or 2 days a week for rest but at least an hour a day just for health but once we're in the Gotchiverse it's going to be tough because you're going to be like imagine when you have if you have 24 Gotchis and you have a level 9 altar, which you can get your Gotchi UBI once every hour. So it's like I can never leave my house or anywhere I go, it can't be more than like 20 minutes away because like even just being at the bar explaining to people, give me a second, I have to go empty the reservoir and then also channel some alchemica. They're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like don't I'm just making money, relax. Like it's gonna be it'll be very interesting. So we're gonna have to can't get trapped in our chairs full time because it's just not good but there'll be a balancing act.
I mean, I could see a number of roles emerging from the Gotchiverse once it all gets going, once it's mainstream, and we know a lot of people are involved in it, and a lot of people are committing their time to it. We might need, we might need like fitness coaches in the Gotchiverse that like they'll come to your parcel and be like, "You've been here way too long. You need to get off. You need to, maybe rent your Gotchis out for the next couple days. We need to get you on a fitness routine, and then you can come back."
Yeah,
Or may,
it'll be a thing.
or maybe there'll be like relationship counselors too, because I feel like that's going to be another thing that comes up. With people committing so much time, it becomes difficult to strike that balance. And so, there'll be people that are like, oh, you know what, babe, for date night, it can be anywhere you want as long as it's in the Gotchiverse. And I don't know. I don't know how that's going to be taken, but we'll see.
Well, it's interesting because we do have a few gotchis that are married. I mean, I'm sure we have many, but I know of a few. So I wonder how that does. Like, Webb is a good example because his wife is also into Aavegotchi, so it's like the perfect like kismet kind of thing. Where when I was in a relationship, that relationship fell apart because became an Aavegotchi maxi. I mean, it fell apart for other reasons, but I'll blame it on Aavegotchi because that's a simpler ego-driven, like less ego-painful-driven answer. But like I was putting a lot of time and I was very obsessed. This is like when we first started the ambassadors program and we were like gearing up for like Haunt 2. And I remember because me and this person split up and we had lived together and my whole like process was like, I'll move out, but I need to have internet in the new apartment because I have to stream the GVM for Haunt 2. And it's like I won't leave unless I have that established. So it was like my whole life was revolving around making sure I covered the Haunt 2 and also was able to like GVM because it's such a lucrative thing when you do it.
That's dedication right there, man. But that's also going to be maybe a litmus test from now on when you're, getting into these new relationships. You're definitely going to do the Gotchi litmus test and see, how much alchemica can she collect, right? Is she good at collecting alchemica? Is she able to sustain a yield? I think those are important questions to ask.
Yeah, I think like at this point, I'm going to keep my love life simple, and I'll keep Aavegotchi outside of it, unless but sometimes I meet women talking about NFTs, like not more in a social way. Like I'll be talking, like a lot of my friends at the bar know that I'm like an Aavegotchi maxi because I have stickers all over the place, and I use our Aavegotchi stickers, specifically Alchemica, as like my spot on the table for next up in pool because it's like no one will argue. Everybody argues about whose quarter it is, but it's like that alpha there, that's me. So shut the hell up. I'm up next. But I meet more women, and it's usually from other people that I know in the bar that are like, talk to him. He's crazy about NFTs. And then people say that I just spew because, we're all like, so into this. And you start talking about it and you realize that it's like, oh, these people have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. And I'm just like going and going. And it's like, I feel like a child whenever we talk about this stuff, which is good because I'm 38, but like it makes me feel like an 8-year-old all the time, which is like the right spot to be in life, I think.
Yeah, well, see, that's an interesting point that you made that you're the NFT slash metaverse guy at the bar. I wonder, because we're ambassadors, we're in the Aavegotchi Ambassadors program, so it's our job to spread the good gospel of Gotchi. So what happens if you're at the bar one night and you get everybody kind of around you, and I'm sure maybe this has happened, asking you about NFTs and stuff. Are you technically running an event at that point? Because I mean, it's kind of like an event, like you're a consultant to some sense, right? So I think these could be like good opportunities to spread the word, the gospel.
See, it's interesting because like I do have a lot of people ask me about it, and it's just a lot of these people are not crypto native, so they all assume the worst of everything. It's a scam. It's not going to be around in a year. You're destroying the environment. So once I get past all those like baseless arguments, essentially, then it becomes like, how can I get in without having to do anything? And like that's why the Gotchi Vault is so cool. I've told people about the Gotchi Vault. It's like, look, if you want to do the bare minimum, like really not even do any research, like look at my video on how to set up a wallet, do this, and like, then you can do it. But I always urge people, it's like, get in there and learn. I don't like, you should never put money up if you don't know what is happening. Like you should really, really, but there are a lot of people who have become interested in my little circle, and I'll probably not rent, but lend some of them gotchis to get them on because I feel like people will sometimes hesitate to jump into something because of, like $1,000 to us is nothing because we bought in early, but to new people that's a little daunting. But if you can give them access to like, hey, I got 17 gotchis here, I'll give you my gotchi for 3 days or a week. Play around, run around. You can't like same thing with my like son. I don't have to worry about him if I do a lending contract. All of his shady internet behavior won't really affect me because it's unlikely that he'll like it's a rental. So it's like I can sleep better at night. But ideally, I'll rent out gotchis to noobs and be like, yeah, take a trip, see how it is, like play around, get that experience, and then we can onboard you fully from there.
I'm really looking forward to that as well. I think it's going to be like a really cool way to create a connection between people that we already know and in a very low investment way kind of help them out with no cost. It doesn't cost us anything besides renting the Aavegotchi out. So that's going to be a really interesting opportunity. I have some siblings, younger siblings, and they've kind of been getting into the play to earn aspect of things, and I pointed them, immediately to Aavegotchi because I said, look, you're looking at all these other play to earn games where they're asking you to, like you said, spend a couple $1,000s to get involved into the game, where you can instead just borrow my assets and try it out for yourself, and it doesn't cost you anything. That's a huge like a value proposition compared to, drop $6,000 and then try this game out, and if you don't like it, you have to sell all the assets.
Yeah, much less risk for the new player. A nice little onboarding, and that's why I like this whole idea of a lobby that Pixelcraft is pushing out. I think it's really good because maybe in that lobby, maybe not immediately because we're building to a free-to-play model, but maybe there is like a section in the lobby where people who have no experience or like just come in and they can kind of get a taste of the Gotchiverse. Maybe run around a little bit with like an avatar that no one owns, but everyone owns, sort of. Also, I want to say hi to everybody. We have a whole bunch of people in here. If you want to speak, raise your hand. Hefe is the host, so he'll be able to give you permission. I know we have Nyan Kong in here. I think it's what's your name on this? Centertain Game. So just raise your hand, and we'll gladly bring you up because we want to talk to everybody.
Yeah, it's actually, this is a great cue, and I made you co-host as well. And so, yeah, tonight is one of our other, our regular Sunday GotchiSpace, but we have a special guest who's going to be joining us, and that is Nyan Kong, who is one of the Aavegotchi developers. And so, yeah, you're on stage here. So welcome to GotchiSpace. I know you were here last weekend. It was kind of an unprompted discussion that we had, and it was a really good discussion around kind of your thoughts around what you do for the Gotchiverse, and I think we had a really good discussion around that. So how
thanks for the intro and the welcome, guys. Yeah, I'm fine. I this weekend, like most weekends, I worked on a bunch of Aavegotchi stuff. I can't stop. It's my crack. Definitely need more exercise, although this last week I did do some. So to your guys' discussion, I agree that that's super important. Without your health, nothing else matters. So yeah, good lessons there and good message. Yeah, so I'm just excited to be here, and I've been listening while you guys have been talking. So I'll let you run the show, and if there's anything you're curious about or if something comes up, I'll speak up.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, maybe I'd like to actually get into get right into what your role is at Pixelcraft, and maybe you can tell like our audience a little bit about what you do at Pixelcraft and what are some of the things with Aavegotchi specifically you've been involved in.
Well, my official role is game director, and most of what I've done is a balance between graphics and game design. I was originally hired to create the realm, the graphics for the realm, and since my background is predominantly game design, I've also helped with that. And as a part of the Pixelcraft team, everybody wears different hats, so there isn't anybody who really does anything exclusively except Golden Cross and Coder Dan, obviously, are the original founders. and they, of course, wear multiple hats as well, but basically they're leading the company. And then someone like Zbot, for example, he's owning all the Gotchi branded characters and wearables and consumables. And so I was brought on to complement his work to create the actual world that they'd finally be able to explore in. So what I actually do day to day ranges. Some examples of things I've spent a lot of time on, obviously creating graphics for the realm, which include, all the installations and the parcels and basically what you see around the Gotchi characters. And and then a whole host of game design documentation. And there's some areas in there that I haven't dealt much with. I provided feedback, but those areas tend to be the crypto space centric investment model systems like tokenomics and stuff like that. I've worked with Dan and Let's Go Bankless, another guy who's created the magic behind the tokenomics. And I generally leave the systems design to other people. So that includes things like the tokenomics, the Gotchi traits, guilds, and some underlying blockchain stuff that paves the foundation for everybody's investments and returns. My background is more, making either fun games for entertainment or educational games for training or fun learning or digital therapeutic stuff. So my role is to try to make this the funnest experience it can be. But because I'm still relatively new to the blockchain space, I leverage everybody else's knowledge there. So in addition to the design stuff, some examples of the design things I have spent a lot of time on, everything related to the realm directly, like the design of the maps, the citadel, the whole grid around that, the sizes and proportions of parcels and the installations that go on them. Of course, I've worked with the rest of the team, and early on especially worked heavily with Golden Cross and Coder Dan, still do, and will continue to do so. The system of roads, the districts within the Citadel, basically everything that creates that is eventually going to create the sense that this is a bustling metropolis. And then same sort of principles outside of the Citadel in the grid. But other things too, like partner engagement. That's something that Golden Cross has been very excited about. And as we brought more partners on board and they've actually purchased land, we have plans for making some interesting offerings for them, like mini games exclusive to their content. And then other things like group puzzles. That's a big thing I'm excited about, where people have to work together to do stuff, to unlock things, to get rewards. In addition to the core gameplay loops, which is another area I've worked a lot on, is basically the motivations for players, like what's going to bring them to the Gotchiverse, what's going to keep them interested, and what's going to get them coming back. So a lot of theoretical exploration there, but also building some tight game loops throughout all the activities you do, whether it's focused on your parcels or you're exploring or you're fighting or what have you, all that stuff. Then there's other things like more details for the installations themselves and coming up with new installations for purposes we'll need and probably the community will definitely want in the future. Things like that have been mentioned previously in light papers and white papers, interiors. Those are going to play a significant role in a number of different interesting ways. They won't just be interiors inside of your lodge, for example, but they'll extend to obviously dungeons and things like that, but also things like floating islands and and figuring out how all this is going to work from a player perspective, like what you can see because it's isometric. One of the things I initially set down for the realm was what's the angle of the camera, because most of the work that I do it starts with 3D. So I'll actually have stuff set up in a 3D environment with a camera that doesn't have perspective, so you get this isometric view. So that was an interesting challenge because the characters are flat facing you. So how does that work when you're trying to make it look dimensional? So that was what I arrived at, was an angle that didn't break it too much with the flat facing gotchis, but still gave the world some dimension. And so there's a lot of decisions centered around that from a game design perspective, but also a visual perspective that I've had to do constantly and will continue to do. You probably saw the video with the mounts, like the adepts, and I call them soldats, the soldiers. Those are all related to the Citadel and some ancient guard statues. You mentioned like a Trojan horse. Yeah, there's some ideas for stuff like that, but great that we're on a similar wavelength. Those are things which I just come up with, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there's a ton of that stuff on the back burner to do in the future. But the big challenge for the team is we need to get people in the Citadel as soon as possible, so the parcels that they've bought they can work with and play with and start earning and all that stuff. I mean, that's obvious. But what that means is there's a lot of other cool ideas for stuff to do, but it's just going to take time because we have limited number of people. Although that's increasing all the time. The team is almost doubled since I've joined. So there's more human power to rocket this forward, but still you're still limited by what you can accomplish. And then when you factor in that you need to get a version that works, and then you need to get it out to the community so everybody can try it and see if they like it and get feedback and all that. So that extends the time even further. So our plans extend for years. And a lot of the stuff I was really excited about 3 or 4 months ago, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be like a year and a half before that ever materializes. So I have to be patient. Like there's the no futuristic, you mentioned like the 8-year-old in you. I'm like, I'm right there with you with this stuff because I'm so excited, but I'm like, oh, I have to be patient because we just need to get through all these other important things that people are really going to appreciate first. And I mentioned, I think on the previous call, it might have been one of the other ones, but the balance between the investment and return on investment side of things versus the traditional gameplay. So that is a really interesting game design challenge throughout all this, so that, like I said, we get stuff timely to the community for the things they want first. So a lot of time spent on that. And then there are other things like I'm managing all the audio for the game. I work with an outside musician and sound designer to create all that. That means as I come up with designs, and there are other designs like user interface, for example, that another team is working on, all that stuff needs to be sure to have the audio. So managing all that and coming up with lists for things, making sure stuff gets done, and then they all get done in concert with each other so that when we have a deadline we want to release to the community, it makes sense, all the different pieces, whether it's audio, graphics, functionality, it makes sense as a release. Another area you guys have heard, there'll be a Realm trailer coming soon. And that was something that took 5 weeks of time to manage and direct. That was exciting. Had a good external team focusing on the graphic side of stuff. Had a voice actor that I'd worked with before do some voice for it, and the sound designer creating original music for it. It's definitely a huge step up for us as a team, and I think everyone's going to dig it. It's pretty cool. So that took a lot of time. And then, of course, there's providing feedback for all the stuff the rest of the team is doing and trying to keep up with it, because there's so many different groups of people focusing on so many things. it can be difficult to keep track of it all. So that requires a lot of communication, a lot of meetings, but at the same time, everybody needs time to go and do the stuff they need to do. So as I mentioned before, that's one of the best things about this experience for me is the team and the company and the community and then the project. So it all really fits. There's a great synergy with everything that I only see getting better is the team learns to work better together, and we work with the DAO more and figure out how all of this can be a better oiled machine. So there's more than that, but basically that's a smattering of stuff I tend to focus on.
Wow.
That is so dope. I have a quick question for you because you talked about design. You mentioned roads, installations. Did you design the different lampposts that we saw in the last stress test?
Yeah. Yeah, all the graphics that are not Gotchi specific, like the Gotchis themselves, the wearables, the consumables, and then, of course, all the icons that Zbot had originally created. Yeah, for example, another area in the last, the Gotchiverse game Bible, there were over 100 icons I did. I like doing icons. It's such a great love of mine. Like I used to do logo design and stuff, and you want to create icons and logos and things that read really small. So you have to pick the most important details, and it has to convey the message that you want. So that was a great challenge, like over the last 2 or 3 chapters, doing a ton of icons. So all the trait icons you saw in there and stuff like that. And they were quick to make. I mean, they're pretty simple, but yeah. So to answer your question, the lampposts, I created that and everything else. Now, when I say I created it, that's either straight the graphics, the animations, and or the planning for how you're going to see those things. Like one of the cool ones that took a little bit of figuring out amongst the team and I was the parallaxing floor. So I wanted there to be like this star field below so it felt like there was an infinite amount of space below the world, make it feel deeper and all that stuff. And so I did some tests in 3D with 2D textures with a camera to kind of simulate how it might work. And then we figured out some stuff. And then the programmer came in. Point being, the graphics rarely are just the graphics. There needs to be engineering behind it to actually make it work. Sometimes a lot of engineering. And sometimes I don't design a lot of that. I rely on more technical designers or the engineers themselves. So there's a really good push and pull between how things go, but it all starts from the ideas. So when you have a bright idea, like for a lamp, then that's something that I can just come up with. Like, hey, it's a city. There's probably going to be some lamps. So I just went crazy and came up with a ton of them. The ones you saw in the last stress test were just a few of them. There's a lot more, and there could be potentially way more. And that turned out to be, hey, this could be something that maybe the DAO could vote on to like change their districts, to customize their district. So there's a lot of thinking around that stuff. Like, hey, what might people want to customize? Everything from, the street names. We'd like to change the name of the streets here to instituting some other fun stuff. Like I alluded to in the last call, I was purposely vague because I wasn't sure what I could talk about. But basically, here's my mindset for sharing with you guys. It's just talking. There's no promises. We're just like, shooting the poop around the campfire. So if you treat it that way and don't treat it as gospel, I think things will be better because a lot can happen between whatever an idea is and then when you actually implement it, it might turn out to not be fun. It might be too much scope. Like, hey, this is a cool idea, but we have other important things and we just don't have time to do this, so we'll put it on the back burner. Other times it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't work. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that's important to reiterate that everything we're going to talk about here tonight is not, is not set in stone or is not a immutable thing by any means. It's just throwing around ideas and doing somewhat of a brainstorming, I think, is really important for when we're having these collaborative processes between the DAO, and really easy to maybe get excited about some of this stuff, but even, a lot of it might not even get implemented. So it's just brainstorming for the most part from what I'm getting from it.
I will say the one thing that we can take away as alpha is that there's more than just the 9 lampposts developed that we saw so far. That's real alpha. There's more lampposts. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yes, there are millions of lampposts waiting to be created. But yeah, there are a lot of things that nobody's seen that are sitting there waiting for the right time. Yeah, lampposts are one of them. I'll speak a little bit more for a quick second about the whole transit system, because people talk about, well, it's such a big area. You guys have no idea how big the area is. The last stress test was literally one hood, and the Citadel is 9 by 6 of those, so 54 of those. So just if you played the last stress test, just take a moment to be like, well, I didn't even find like the other side of the map when I just walked straight across. Imagine doing that 9 times to go all the way across the widest part. So you can imagine, well, yeah, roads are cool because they speed you up, but they're not going to speed you up that much, are they? And then my wearables and my Gotchi traits and all that, I mean, I'm not going to be that super fast to like get across there before I want to blow my brains out, right? And the answer is probably there need to be mechanisms in place to allow you to get to different places quicker. So some of the ideas there are parcel hopping. So if you own different parcels, being able to unlock the ability to hop between them. I literally just created a draft of an installation graphic design for that. It's kind of funny. It's like almost like a carnival signage with this big blocky gotchi with an arrow, and it's got these carnival lights and stuff on it going, zzz, 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 and then as you level that up, you can do more hops a day. But that's an example of like just an inspired, fun idea. Didn't sit there and like make my brain bleed planning like, well, what should this be? I mean, it really needs to blah, blah. It's like, whatever, this sounds like fun, so just make it. So there's a good mix of that on this project where there's like super planned stuff. Like the tokenomics is a perfect example. I mean, that's like 6 months of hard work you should see the spreadsheets for this stuff. I mean, it's literally like, it's like Inception with spreadsheets inside spreadsheets inside spreadsheets. I look at that stuff, and as a game designer, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I don't understand half of it, but it's cool. And it's a totally necessary foundation for all this. And without that working really well, none of this other stuff, man, I mean, who gives a crap about streetlights? It's all about that strong foundation. So the good news is I think it's there. And the better news is we can embellish it as we have time to do stuff like more streetlights or more transportation stuff. So really quick, just to finish that, I know I go off on tangents, sorry, but for the transporting, the parcel hopping, that's definitely going to be something that's going to help reward people with more parcels. But then what about for people who can't afford, parcels? I know, no futuristic. I hear you, sometimes when you share stuff, I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be nice if I could have that? You've definitely got this locked down, like with your distribution of wealth and stuff. But what about for people who, they don't have a lot of money, but they want to get into this? Yeah, they can do Gotchi landing and all that. But, say they work super hard, they save for a while, and they finally get their first parcel. And they're like, yes, I can now start building, but I don't have money to build on it yet. Okay, well, then I'll figure that out. And then they work there, and finally they get their first, like besides their altar, they get their first installation, and they start earning, and they're going around collecting. And that's going to be super rewarding for players. But how can they, if they don't have a second parcel that's, halfway across the Citadel, how can they get across? So that's where I sat down and started designing a transit system. I had ideas a long time ago for stuff like, a train and a bus system and stuff like that. And there's basically 3 ideas, and they range in terms of how long the process takes, how much it costs, and how far can you actually go. And the three types are I think I call it a hover bus system. It's pretty cool. It's like a big, like blue bus or yellow bus. Gotchi's right on the top. You can disembark whenever you want to, but you have to embark at designated transit station depots. And they'll be cheap, and they'll move faster than the fastest Gotchi loaded up with all the cool stuff on the road, like quite a bit faster. And then you've got what I call a Gauss train, which is like a bullet train except cooler. And those things, instead of moving in a straight line like the hover buses that move from point A to point B and then back to point A, the Gauss trains are actually going to move in and out of tunnels and travel around different directions and move way faster. And then you've got warp towers, which are like the more for people who save up or have money to burn, but they will allow people to pinpoint where they actually want to transport to. So that's like a window into just the transit system. There's a lot more to it, but that's the basic idea, which complements where all the roads are now. And another note there is, I don't know if you noticed, but the last stress test map, I added potholes in them, but I also added a bunch of smaller roads, little pathways. And that's going to be a pass that I'm going to add to the Citadel itself, like wide, because the roads that you see in there's a lot of them, but actually when you get down to like the hood size and when you're in it, there's not that many roads. So I'm going to add a lot of alleyways and shortcuts and things. So that will help people until we start instituting the official transit system, whatever that final design will end up being. So there you go. If you enjoyed transit systems, maybe you're bored to death and don't want to hear about it anymore, but there you go.
Well, it's amazing because in the real world, if you think about transit systems like bus depots, they tend to be little like hotspots of like society where people will set up businesses. So I can see people having parcels around these transit systems, setting up NPCs to serve the other people. But you're also going to get transient people who can't afford to get back on the train because, they travel too far or something crazy. So it's like, in New York City where I used to live, their transit system, like if you go to 42nd Street, there's a lot of homeless people and a lot of crime around that. So I wonder if it'll be something similar since we are kind of mocking society or like a mock-up of society in the Gotchiverse.
Yeah, that would be really interesting if we could maintain like the Gotchi vibe throughout all of it. Like the degree of homelessness and disparity and all that stuff is not, because you want to escape and enjoy this experience that you're investing in, but having different flavors to it so it's got depth. I totally agree with you. And I think the most interesting part is what you touched on, which is the whole cultural aspect of all this. Like people outfitting their parcels. Somebody mentioned, I don't know if it was in the last call or if it was in text, I don't remember, but about people advertising along roads and using that. That was something I didn't even think of, but that's totally true. There's going to be emergent aspects to this that mirror real life. Like, hey, well, it makes sense to advertise on a road because there's more traffic and more eyeballs on it and stuff. So there's going to be a lot of that with this, which will yield different types of Gotchi owners, different types of Gotchis. Maybe like one depot will have a bunch of Gotchis with like liquidator shirts and like mohawks and stuff, and you don't want to go there at night. But yeah, it'll be super exciting.
You really are the city planner of the Gotchiverse. That's how I think of it after listening to you there.
Well, it's challenging and very fun, but I think I mentioned this, or maybe I didn't in the last call. But one of the really cool things that came out of the call, last week's call, and listening to the discussions and also interacting and getting feedback, was I realized that a lot of the ideas, and in fact I may have said this at the end of the call, but a lot of the ideas I had were potentially cool, but the mindset shifted after that call, which was really double down on everything at the foundation level and make sure those are the things that are complemented and added to. So that means everything centric to the Gotchi, everything the Gotchi can do, everything you can do with your parcels, everything you can do to farm, all of those things should get like all of the first attentions for all this stuff. So we had mentioned also stuff like quests and things, which for sure we're going to want those, but we need to keep things focused so that there's more variety. And so if you're getting bored, for example, of just harvesting and channeling, which culturally speaking will be a really interesting phenomenon for the social aspect of all that, like people getting together and in like a ritualistic way and performing this activity. That's going to be really neat to see what individuals do, but also guilds, which was the whole plan. I mean, Coder Dan and Golden Cross have been thinking about this long before I joined. So when you say city planning, I agree, but it's all got to really complement the initial soul of this whole experience. And looking to reality can oftentimes help you when you're trying to figure out, well, I want to make something that's not real, but I want to kind of make it familiar enough and then add a spin to it so it feels like this unique place. If you pick most movies, for example, that you see, even if it's like a wild and crazy world, it's rooted in some kind of realities that you can understand and relate to. If it's too bizarre and too different, then you start to lose the audience. So that's an interesting push and pull that we as a team try to keep in mind, but definitely me when I'm planning things like the roads or the transit system and stuff like that. It's like the bus itself reminds you of a bus, doesn't have wheels, but it feels like it's interesting and different, but not so much so that you're like, well, what is that? A loaf of bread?
Yeah. No, we go ahead, no fear. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's amazing that you said that because I have a background in improv comedy. And one of the things they always tell you is don't like out invent yourself. Like when you're doing something, like especially for comedy, you can be crazy aliens, but you have to have it based. It has to be grounded in a base reality that we all accept and acknowledge as like humans who share the same emotions and same like kind of emotional condition. So you can't get too weird because then it's not relatable. So it's amazing that you guys are thinking like that because that's how I think as an entertainer. Before I go and take everything to the moon, you got to kind of keep it somewhat grounded so that people can actually like tie in and relate to it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then I think you were touching on, how we talk about how channeling is going to be a very core part of the early kind of gameplay. I think a lot of the other stuff that you mentioned, like the transport system and, the buses and the different ways you can move around the Gotchiverse, even on the roads themselves, I think they'll play a big part into how these events are created and how people get from point A to point B, which is the channeling ceremony, is going to be really important as well, because that itself could turn into a game. If you have 3 different channeling ceremonies you need to go to, and you might have to map that out and find like the best way to get to all 3, or if you can get to all 3.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting keeping that relatable aspect to all this. But as you start thinking about this, you start thinking, well, should there be GPS and should they blah, blah. You start mirroring like what's transpired in our history that has led to where we are today, and where people like Elon Musk, for example, are looking towards the future to try to create and mirror things in here, but not go too far so that it's not relatable, like you say, but provides an added value to the experience. I'm also interested to see with channeling, like how many people are going to be late to that. Like, oh, dude, I saw this NFT display. It was so awesome, and I started chatting, and I lost track of time. Sorry. Or, hey, man, I've been running the whole time. I got to figure out a better way. When are they coming out with the transit system, or stuff like that?
Yeah, and I mean the big thing, one of the transport mechanisms I was wondering is from your parcel itself, which seems like it might be part of your thought process of creating maybe perhaps some sort of an installation or something that might help people get from point A to point B, like if they have multiple parcels. I think that's a really cool point as well.
Yeah, well, that's where the parcel hopping comes in. It'll literally allow you to move between parcels that you own. So that definitely will be useful, but it's only useful for somebody who has two or more parcels. Um, there may be an opportunity to provide something for any user to have like limited transportability on their own, but that's where balancing all this is important, because you can easily dilute the broth by adding too much water, where, hey, you can do it this way and that way and this way, and then all of a sudden it devalues other methods. And um, so we'll be considering a number of levels to this, which involve like, okay, so if you want to use a transit, maybe you shell out some glitter, or maybe you can shell out some FUD if you don't have glitter, or what have you. Or maybe we make it something that it's DAO controlled, where if you want to implement a transit system, you have these different options of stuff that you can build, and it's going to cost you whatever currency in order to create that in your district, as opposed to us providing it as developers. And all of that needs to balance like down to the individual with their parcels and how they want to move to someone else's parcel, or they want to explore, and be able to come back to their parcel. So that actually was brought up before about, well, if you're like way far away and you want to be able to return to your parcel, is there a way to do that? So we're thinking about some methods to allow for that. So you can see how there's a lot of levels to this in terms of like on an individual basis, what you might want to do versus, hey, this is good for like public transportation, like other people can use it too. And then how all that plays with each other so that things still feel special. Because in the end, you don't want to have like, 12 loaves of bread and they basically all taste the same. Like, well, why not just have one? And then if people want to create like NFT displays with 12 loaves of bread that all look the same, maybe that's an art, quote unquote, that they want to share. Great, do it. But when it comes to functionality, we want to make sure that we keep things distinct and play well with each other.
Well, we talk about DAOs, right? And we have our Aavegotchi DAO right now, and then we have a bunch of like committees, task forces that have come out as a result of that. And then further than that, we're discussing having each district having its own like little sub DAO. I wonder if these DAOs, these sub DAOs are going to be responsible for creating these visual differences in between, like, do you think there's going to be a significant variation between one district and the next over a long period of time because of
Oh,
all these things?
yeah, I think so. Whether it's DAOs, sub DAOs, um, I don't know, but I'm sure, quite certain that. So this touches on another point that became obvious to me as I worked more in this. So I've mentioned this before. I come from more traditional game development, where the team works on something. Maybe they do some marketing, reach out to see like, would this be popular with the target market, and blah blah blah, with charts and all that stuff. But basically, the team would create a finished product and then share it, and then it would be out in the market and so on. And that evolved as mobile games, for example, took off more, where it was very iterative, like we're doing now. Um, so uh, the point I'm making is that things are definitely heading in the direction of allowing people to build this world. So you're going to build your parcel, or you're going to buy your parcels. You're going to build on them with different installations. You're going to decorate them. You're going to do all that stuff. And then all the social and cultural aspects that ensue from there. You're going to go out exploring. You're going to fight. Eventually there will be dungeons and stuff like that. But customizing the world around you is definitely important. That's a trend that I don't see ending ever, that people want to make their space their own. But if they can influence the space around them, like in a DAO-run district, for example, I definitely see that being an important customization consideration that we're going to continue to have, and allow people to choose like the street lights, or maybe we could even go beyond, like, here's your recipe selection. Do you want combo number 1, number 2, number 3? Maybe it could be secret combo number 4, where users submit designs and stuff like that. Who knows where it's going to go, but I think it's definitely going to be focused around the idea that you can eventually make this space your own. So I see significant changes over time. When those changes will be allowed to start really depends on how, the rollout of all this stuff, but it's definitely in mind to try to get little bits of that along the way. So 6 months or a year from now, I don't think we'll recognize, like if you showed us a window to that now, I don't think we'd recognize stuff. So pretty excited.
Wow. I mean, yeah, we're starting out with a blank slate here, so it makes me wonder how things are going to be built. And one of the things I've been wondering myself is, I remember Dan a couple hangouts ago had mentioned we're going to have tiles that we'll be able to put on our parcels, which I thought is really exciting. I mean, even though you've created this beautiful star-like pattern underneath all the parcels, I'm sure some people want to tile over that and create their own like designs. And I think that's going to be an interesting aesthetic thing that happens. And in addition to that, I think Dan had also mentioned there may be periods where there'll be like exclusive tiles. So I wonder how this exclusivity of certain items is going to play into like creating the visual differences over months and years,
Oh yeah, totally agree with you. I'm excited about that. I started out doing some initial tile designs, but recruited Zbot to see if he could do some, because he loves doing pixel art, and that's what they are. So probably we'll end up collaborating at some point more, but that is totally designed to allow an owner to customize their parcels. And the more of them that you purchase, the more variety you can get, and you can swap them out and do stuff. There'll be a rollout of the specifics of how it actually all works. But the graphics are being generated now for that. And so that is, on a personal level, something you can do beyond, the choice and placement of your installations, which determine the functionality that's offered to you, like how much yield you can get based on, hey, I have 1,400 harvesters I've purchased over the last 6 months. I can generate a 8,467 blah, 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 whatever. That's great. But maybe somebody does 100 of them, but they make it look like the word friend or something on their spacious parcel. So you can customize the look of things based on your placement, but you can also customize in other ways, like the tiles and so forth. And that kind of thing will continue into the future. There'll be more of that for sure. People are going to want that.
What are your thoughts behind displaying art in the Gotchiverse, or having some sort of NFT displays or billboards or that sort of thing?
Yeah, good question. There are two parts to that. First one is NFT displays. That's I actually just finished an initial design for the installation levels for that. That's been planned for a while, but that's going to allow people to whatever NFTs they have, they can display on their parcels. And then when you mentioned billboards, that's another thing which could definitely tie into DAOs as well. But to create visual interest and to tie in, I alluded to the floating islands concept. Something interesting with that, which is relevant to billboards, is the altitude of things. In an isometric game, when you're looking at something, like say you're looking at a really huge lodge, without doing anything special, like for example, if you go behind the lodge, then you make the lodge semi-transparent. Typically games do stuff like that. But what if it's in the air? Like imagine it's a big lodge that's floating above Gotchi's. So it's no longer something you're walking behind. It's literally you're just walking with no obstruction across a field, for instance, but there's a big floating thing. Whatever it is, it doesn't need to be a lodge. It could be anything. But the question arose in my mind, well, what are we going to do for players where you don't want this big thing in your way? So we're going to be instituting an altitude-based, and it ties in with your zoom level in the game as to what you can see. The best example, and actually the original reason I thought of this, was the Great Portal. That sucker is huge. It's a giant portal. So if you can imagine one of the legs of that gate, if you're just walking behind the base of it, I mean, you literally won't be able to see anything on screen. So, and then you'll never be able to see the full graphic because we're not going to display this big, giant graphic of a enormous Great Portal when you zoom all the way out. But it will progressively display more relevant material based on your zoom level. So I know I went a little bit off track there, but the reason that's ties into the billboards is billboards typically are raised off the ground so you can see stuff. So we'll leverage that same kind of tech and then offer pre-made billboards. You know, you see all the time, put your ad here, you know, stuff like that. But there'll be things we'll advertise, either events coming up or, hey, visit the Pixelcraft Square for the latest blah. But then there will be billboards, I'm sure, that you can rent, again, mirroring things in reality, like so that your guild can advertise or recruit. So there'll be a whole bunch of functionality, desired functionality that can tie into a seemingly only aesthetic thing like a billboard. So that was a good point to bring up.
Wow, and I like the aspect of the, you know, thinking about things in 3D, you know, in terms of like the vertical aspect. Even though we're looking at a 2D game, I didn't even realize that's a consideration, but actually that's a really important thing to take into account for creating like a nice user experience when you're traveling around the Gotchiverse. You want to be able to see what you're supposed to see, but then also have the option to maybe, as you zoom out, see things that are maybe less relevant to your immediate view, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of designs behind that sort of thing. I'm sure all of you had to wipe away some blood from your eyes with the previous stress tests with the grid when you zoomed out and it was like this pixel dancing nastiness, looked like barbed wire on your face. Like, can you please improve the way that looks? Yeah, we definitely agree that doesn't work. But there were plans and there are plans that tie into this elevation zoom level thing, which will fade different aspects so that the visuals will be pleasing at different zoom levels based on what you want and need to see and what actually looks good at that zoom level.
Now, I know you're not behind the design of the traits, but I believe one of the traits is, you know, you have this ability to see like a zoom level essentially with a certain eye color, I believe. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of which, there might be certain Aavegotchis that can see a lot more than other ones. And I think that might create a interesting dynamic in terms of, you know, you might have to have certain level trait to be able to zoom out so far to see this X thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So a note about that, as with anything, there needs to be a careful balance with these traits. You can't have, for example, hey, if you max out your zoom trait or your trait that affects zoom, you can see 8,000 times more than everybody else. I mean, that's just lopsided and broken and will never fly, obviously. So there will be a balance between what does everybody need to see, and that also plays into how we're loading the game because we are offering a singular game experience that everybody is sharing at the same time. There's a huge amount of technical hurdles, like just unending complexity there to get all that to work between different servers all around the world so you're seeing what you expect to see. And when you and I are across the world and we both go to grab an Alchemica pickup, like who gets it first, and that should be considered. There's so many things going on there, but I think I lost my train of thought. But what did you bring up?
Just the aspect of being able to
Oh,
zoom.
yeah,
Certain Aavegotchis gonna have the
yeah, yeah,
trait
yeah,
to be
yeah,
able to zoom out.
yeah. Thanks. Um, so there will be abilities that there's discussions now with the traits. Well, there's been a lot of discussion, but how much your movement can be affected, for example, all that stuff is going to be carefully balanced to make sure that nobody's too OP. Because some of the reality with this investment is if you have more money to spend, you're going to get a better gotchi. You can afford to sink a ton of money into godlike stuff. And then, so that's a consideration where you want the people who can spend money to have a good time and not feel cheated or too limited. And then you want the people who don't have a lot of money to actually be able to compete. So that right there is a huge area of a ton of different considerations. So, yeah, I think a lot of this is going to start. You're going to be able to actually play this once we get the trait release in. That's when everybody's finally going to be able to see the effects of all the hard work of petting your gotchis and then allocating points and choosing them in the first place and strategizing and all that stuff for your gotchis in the world and how they affect the world around them.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of my excitement for the Gotchiverse actually comes out as a content creator and being able to create like really cool content. And I do a podcast with No Future, District 420, and so I'm kind of thinking about once the Gotchiverse launches, my first order of business might be to actually like get a lodge going or get the appropriate installations in place to start broadcasting. I know maybe that might not be something available immediately, but that's kind of like my medium-term goal is to have some sort of a way to broadcast like a podcast or, like a DJ set or something out in the Gotchiverse. Is that something you've thought about?
Yes. It's tentatively called an antenna with two A's. It's always going to have two A's.
Nice.
But yeah, that's been in the list for a while. It just didn't make the cut as the initial set that we're going to be launching, but definitely plans for that, and recognize that as something. There's going to be quite a lot of people, present company included, are going to want to do that broadcast within the Gotchiverse. So yeah, right there with you.
So I imagine from a DAO perspective, a really interesting thing to do with that is we talk about like broadcasting rights, right? There's 24 hours, and maybe No Future can speak on this too. There's 24 hours in a period, in a day, and so there are only so many slots, I guess, for broadcasting. If you're going to be broadcasting something as a radio station or a podcast, it'd be interesting as a DAO or, as a group, we'd have to bid on the rights, kind of how we have to do for the wearable crests for broadcasting rights. And then that way, you have your slots secured for whatever show you're doing, or maybe you're just doing like a radio station where you're playing music, but it's like your produced music. I think that would create some really interesting kind of like dynamics for people to kind of get that set up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then you sort of look at history. It's interesting to look at all this stuff. Like, what do you choose to mirror from reality, and what do you choose to change from reality? So if you look at the music industry as an example, how that's progressed, and basically it got to the point where if you didn't have the right connections, well, I mean, it was always this case, but it became extremely so. If you didn't have the right connections, you wouldn't get the right producers, you wouldn't get the funding, you wouldn't get the exposure, and you wouldn't become famous unless you did. But then that's when, what was it back in the day where music stuff, what was the original digital music player? What was that called? Can't remember the stage. Well,
Well, I
basically,
mean,
when music became available, not in records and tapes and cassettes and stuff, um, probably all you're like, wait, what is a cassette? But um, anyway, that's when people started getting exposed who didn't have the opportunity, which is the same thing, sort of history repeating itself in cycles, like with Twitter and then this podcast. Same thing. You couldn't do this before. So when you think about the Gotchiverse and what types of technology and capabilities we're going to offer people, and then what sort of connection to any sort of currency or limitations are we going to institute, it'll be interesting to see what people accept as a, yeah, that sounds like a good idea versus, nah, man, I don't have to pay for that. You know, like for a long time there with games, like on Steam and stuff, if the game was like 99 cents, a lot of times I'd be like, well, out of principle, I don't want to pay 99 cents, even if it was like a great game. So who knows? There'll be people on both sides of the fence, but I think it's definitely going to be over the next year. I think it'll be really telling to see what direction that takes shape, whether you lock in your slots, like you were saying, to be able to have your time slot for the Citadel, like, welcome to channel for the Citadel. This is your host, no futuristic or Hefe or what have you. Because if you are able to lock in those slots, the value of that, because everybody has to listen to you and that's the main station. But then if you look, sorry to get all like, what's the word?
oh no, I love what this is going.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is like so when TV first came out, the television, there was no cable. It was just like channels, and there were only a few channels, and you could basically count on two hands how many channels there were. That meant that everybody who watched TV had to watch the same stuff, and there was very little variety. So that helped shape culture so that people generally they didn't necessarily have the same views, but they got their information from the same place. Generally speaking, you might miss a channel and whatever, but popular shows and things would spread like wildfire and everybody would watch them. But then, when cable came and then you have like hundreds of channels, and then it became such a saturation of, I don't even know what to watch anymore. I mean, I have the same problem with Netflix. I'm like, well, do I just sit there drooling and follow the stuff that they're just dishing out to me? Or do I explore like the thousands and thousands of possible shows and movies and things I could binge watch or just enjoy? So it'll be interesting to see where we start with this stuff, like with the radio stations, and then where we end up going. Like, is it going to be widespread and open for everyone to just jump on and do it? Is there going to be cost involved? What are the limitations of that stuff? And how does that mirror reality?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm just thinking here, listening to this conversation, thinking, well, I have this great idea of, the time slot and all that. But then in my mind, I'm also like, is that kind of like we're going back to centralization? Because like, we're all about decentralization. Are we then kind of centralizing some sort of power in the Gotchiverse that maybe later on people are going to bring that up and be like, you know what, this radio station programming thing is way too centralized now. There's like, 10 guilds or 3 guilds that control all the radio stations. We need to do something about this. And then we might go through another kind of like decentralization and, let's make things more open and free and whatever, right? So
yeah,
I think there might be cycles.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's what kind of makes this interesting. There'll be people who will think ahead and be like, well, we don't want to repeat that from actual history. Then there'll be people like, no, it's cool. I think this will offer benefits in the short term and then we can fix it later or whatever. And there'll be this ability for people to vote on what the majority wants, which is cool because that decentralization will play a role in shaping something that may end up becoming more centralized. Who knows, to your point.
I think the greatest innovation with what we've done as a DAO is we can see who's in favor of what and know that's truly representative of the actual results. Whereas because it's all, secured by cryptography, and we're going through a snapshot voting system, we're using a token that you can't really directly manipulate. And so this kind of creates like inherently it's a fairly honest system. So we'll know what the feedback is at any point. We'll know that's the true feedback of, what people really want.
Yeah. Well, now might be a good time to open up the discussion because I've been blabbing for too much time. Like, do you guys want to get anyone else on the stage to ask questions or share their thoughts?
Yeah.
Because we've gone over a lot of stuff.
We've gone over a lot of stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people do have some questions or comments. So if you're, willing to come up here, welcome up and just request to speak, and we'll get you up here. Because we can talk about some more of this stuff as well, but we also have a couple extra chapters. We have a bunch of guild-related stuff that's been released, and all that stuff is good to kind of get into, I think. So
actually, while we have you here, I was going to ask you a question. While we're waiting for people to raise their hand and step up, will there, like, for this next stress test that we're about to have, stress test number 4? I know we're going to be testing some of the auto scaling infrastructure for the game. Can you give us any information about that? Like what goes into that, and like how scaled up are we looking at going with this auto scaling, infrastructure?
Well, at the core of it, it's allowing more players to play simultaneously without anybody slowing down or any of the issues that relate to that, where all of a sudden, one server is not updating with another server. So there's a complex architecture there that allows both horizontal and vertical scaling that the engineering staff have been working hard to design and implement. So as Coder Dan mentioned, this next stress test is going to put that to the test. Not for the first time. There have been elements that have existed in the previous ones, but there's a culmination of a lot more functionality. And these stress tests are critical for the team because they, of course, expose weak spots or problems, but they really validate the direction that the engineering staff have taken from a technical standpoint, because it really makes a tremendous difference. And it's way above my head, like how they do this stuff and exactly what they do. I understand sort of the basic concepts of it. But in the end, it just results in, do you have a good experience where, you're chatting with your friend across the globe and you're basically seeing what you expect to see, or not? Because if not, that means this stuff isn't working. So when it is working, you won't know it's even there. Nobody will appreciate it because it's working smoothly. But you can see that in other games when it's not working, for sure. Some of the stuff that I'm sure you've experienced when you play like first-person shooters and stuff. Something that one of the games I loved to play was Titanfall 2. And in that game, it would drive me nuts when I would hear like the melee sound, like the punch or the kick, see it connect with my opponent, and then they would kill me. And they wouldn't die. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And that's because of these server connections and predictive behavior and stuff that for a lot of games still, they don't get this kind of infrastructure beyond a certain point, either because it's too costly, or they can't support the infrastructure, and to do it, they'd have to rip stuff up and it's just too much money, or any number of other reasons. But that's what we're trying to make sure is solid for this, because it's one world that everybody is populating. And of course, the idea of, well, what if there were different servers, so what happens in Europe doesn't matter to US? But that's not the vision that Coder Dan and Golden Cross have for this. They want one place that everybody can come to, the Gotchiverse, not Gotchiverses, although there will be PvE and PvP for the versus part, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and to that point, I'll also add on and say I think one of the core tenets of what will make the metaverse like a free and open kind of place that mimics like a society is going to be a persistent open world where everybody is in one world. That's a more accurate representation rather than, you have people in this boxed off server and then you have people in this boxed off server and that they don't interact with each other. So I think that is a really important point to touch on, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody has anybody raised their hand? They have any questions? I've got to head out pretty soon, so I want to make sure if anybody has anything specific to me that they'd like to ask or anything that we've talked about.
Yeah, I don't see anybody's raised their hand yet, but if any of y'all do have a question for him, right now is a good chance to ask. Just request to speak and we can get you up here. Otherwise, if not, I really appreciate you coming out here today and kind of sharing a lot of this with us. I think it's given me a lot of color, like a lot of background on what can we expect visually going into the Gotchiverse, and it honestly has me like really excited. So.
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share. And I know to some extent you're captive audiences, although you could just mute and change the channel. But I think this is a cool hangout place. I think you are a great host. And no futuristic as co-host. I think it's like a dynamic duo. Yeah, I'm looking forward to participating in more of these in the future. I don't know if I can promise to be in everyone, but got to have some scarcity. But yeah, so thanks for the opportunity again, and I'm excited. Look for this new trailer. That's really gonna. I'm super excited to finally have that shared with everybody. So yeah, if nobody has their hands raised.
Yeah, I'm sure people are being a little shy because talking to the Aavegotchi developer.
Well,
I'm sure if anybody has questions.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Anybody's shy, just turn on one of those, Frosted Flake commercials like voice changer, like the problem I had the other day where I was trying to talk and everybody sounded like this, and apparently I was like talking like this, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
So just have like a voice modulator, and then nobody will know what you really sound like if that makes you anxious.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and I really appreciate you coming out here. This is an open space, so you're always free to just even jump in and listen, or if you decide you have a question, you're free to come up. We don't really have much of a structure. It's more of a hangout, like you said. So I appreciate you coming to hang out with us.
Yeah, no problem. Well, that's how it started last week. I just started listening, and I was like, yeah, this is cool discussions, and then I got involved in blah. So that's how it should be, nice and organic.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, we'll be keeping an eye out for that trailer coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of the conversing.
Thank you, and have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Now I'm getting FOMO for this trailer, like the full trailer.
Oh, I'm getting super FOMO right now about that trailer. I mean, even the visual. Did you see the little teaser that they sent out?
Yeah, I did. It was very, it looked so good.
I think it's going to have, it's going to be on par with some of these other games that, haven't put any or very little thought into the actual game, but have put a lot of thought into the marketing, because there's a lot of really cool videos out there about, Axie Infinity put one out a while ago. Illuvium put out like a crazy trailer, it was quite impressive. But then there's there's like zero substance behind that. Like, I think they're still in like very early, I don't know what their game's going to be like, but it's going to be very, I don't think it's going to be as representative of what their trailer was showing, Whereas with the Gotchiverse, it seems like it's going to be much closer to that.
Yeah, so I just invited up 8-Bit Gamer. They requested some the 8-Bit Gamer account stepping up to speak. How you guys doing?
Yo, what's going on, man? How you doing? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Nice. Just cooking a little bit of a steak, so I have some background sizzling going on. So,
nice.
Guys, that was really, really sweet content. I don't know about you, but like, I mean, I don't think anybody wanted to come up and talk because literally we just wanted to all shut up and hear that guy talk more. because he was just like leaking just pure freaking epicness. Like, I'm pumped right now.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not gonna
freaking
lie.
pumped.
I felt stupid that I asked him about the lamppost. I was like, why did I do that? We could have gotten so much more information that would have been useful, but I needed to know about those lampposts.
That was a very important topic that had to be covered. So I'm glad that, you brought it up. At the end of the day, no futuristic. But it was really, really sick information. I mean, geez, like, it just amazes me every time when, like, we get some of this, like, just really good insight, especially from his kind of design perspective, and, everything from transportation and, the Gotchiverse, and some of the things he spoke about with respect to that, and also, like, how the team, like, is growing, and, how they have to just, communicate while at the same time, like, having time to continue doing what they're doing. And I mean, these guys are thinking, like, mega far out. Like, you could just tell. Like, and that to me is just, I'm just super psyched to even be here in this moment this early. Like, I don't know about you guys, but it's just, wow. Like, I cannot wait. Even just for the stress test coming up, like, this is going to be really, really, I don't know. I'm just stoked. So I wanted to come up and be like, dude, bring the guy back on. Like, I'm ready to shut up again. Give him like another hour. Let's keep going.
I wanted him to keep going. I had some other stuff, but I think there's only so much alpha that can be released at one point. But it's speaking to your experience, like, you've been through this whole adoption cycle already, where you were already an early adopter in something, and then it got adopted. I'm speaking to Bitcoin, and then it became big, and so you've kind of already gone through some of that emotion. So I feel like, where you are now, you can kind of almost see it coming, where, like, I don't really know how to feel right now. I'm stoked, like, but I don't know how stoked I should feel. You know what I mean?
I think that, like, right now you cannot own enough ghosts. You cannot own enough in-game assets. It felt the same way in 2012, 2013 with Bitcoin. I felt like I couldn't buy enough Bitcoin. I couldn't mine enough Bitcoin. So that's how I'm starting to feel about, like, this game right now. And, the talent
Damn.
of, like, just the breadth of talent. I mean, I was texting Master Yin while I was, like, listening to this guy talk, and I'm like, dude, this game is going to fucking rip. Excuse my French, but it's going to rip. And sorry about those of you who are French on this chat. I think Mark Zeller's not here. Is Mark Zeller in the chat? I don't know. But
Nah, you're good.
all right, cool. So I think he's the only French Gotchi player I know. But basically, this is again, it just, we are incredibly early. You can tell that, like, probably the next year alone is just going to be balancing things out. Like, there's going to be a ton of bugs. There's going to be, like, the billboards, and, like, I love how they're thinking about, like, displaying NFTs. Like, I'm going to be able to bring some of my really sick ass NFTs from some of the other communities I'm in, and, like, display them, like, in the Gotchiverse on my parcels, and, like, alongside some of the major roads. And and also, like, just for the guild, like, being able to display, like, art within the guild, or, really sick ass, like, Gotchi art that is continually becoming more and more popular. Like, you're going to see a lot more of that coming soon. So I don't know. I mean, I just love how he really dropped a lot of info tonight. I understand that a lot of things are going to change. So, I want to kind of, again, remind everybody, obviously things are going to change. Like, we all, like, tend to, like, take every word that some of the devs and people working on this game say with, like, a major, like, pound of salt instead of a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, like, they're just thinking really deeply. I can't even imagine the tokenomics, like spreadsheets that he was talking about. Like, it must be just ridiculous. And there's probably, like, gigabrain chads that, like, came up with all that stuff. So I don't know, like, just really stoked, like, to hear that guy talk. Epic content. Thank you for getting him to come on. And, I'm excited for the stress test coming up. I think it's this Tuesday, right?
Yeah, this Tuesday, 2 p.m. UTC. And I think it was, like I said, it gave us a lot of color on what the districts could look like. The most interesting thing to me when he was talking there was he repeatedly touched on, like every district's going to be a lot different because of these sub DAOs. And I think there's going to be a lot of variation that comes about as a result of that. It'll be like, oh, are you the district that has like subway access? Or are you the district that like you can only walk to because like your district didn't invest in any of that infrastructure? Those are going to be like big variations that will really affect how people interact with the map.
And that makes sense. I could see that, like, different like communities are going to have different cultures within their community, and those cultures are going to have a lot of differences that are based on just like where they are, like, in the realm. And I think that variety is just going to be super cool. Like as you're traveling, and as like you have alliances with other guilds in different districts and friends that are part of different guilds, and even there's going to be many players that are part of multiple guilds that are going to love this guild for one, for a couple things, and then maybe another guild for other interests. So a lot of specialization is going to be happening, which is the whole point. Like that's going to increase the variance, variety, and there's going to be something for everybody. Like I'm just like loving how like there's just going to be this like this other world that's going to mimic like just each of our like personalities and our talents and things that we're going to be bringing from the real world into the game. And that's what I'm looking forward to, and I'm looking forward to contributing my talents and building within this world to make it as fun and as creative, and also to make money while doing it. And it's going to bring so much opportunity to so many different people. Like, whether you're, just a fan of like, playing online games, or whether you're, again, somebody that's maybe coming from like a second, third world country that doesn't have the assets starting out or can't afford them, but you can borrow to work your way up. Or even like we talked about how there's going to be kids. I remember playing games as young as like, 7, 8 years old on the computer, maybe even younger. And I can't even imagine like what it would have been like to earn like money playing a game that young. That would be sick. So I just love like what I'm hearing tonight. I think it's just super sick.
Well, and then we talk about kids, right, playing games that are not at working age. Is that, in a way, I think, is that kind of like bringing in a whole new class of people into like the new economy? Because it's kind of like, there was a period of time in our history where there was a subset of the population, like, women were not allowed to work a very, very long time ago. At that point, it was only men who'd go out and work. And then eventually, society realized, okay, we need equality, like things kind of advanced. And then we introduced a whole new demographic into the workforce. And then the workforce significantly increased. And I sometimes wonder if some of the economic benefits that came about after that period were because, the workforce essentially almost doubled. So I wonder what's going to happen with the newer economy now moving forward when we do have these positions available for someone who is like, under working age, but they can still sustainably make some sort of an income. It's going to create this interesting dynamic outside of Aavegotchi, just in society in general, if they're able to scale this up, which seems like they're going to be able to with the, so much thought that they put into like this auto scaling mechanic, and then just how, Aavegotchi supply is controlled by the DAO. And then you're going to have like this unlimited amount of liquidators that you can borrow, or, you can get these liquidators. So there's going to be so many different channels to get involved with Aavegotchi. I really think this is going to be the first big like Web3 enabled game that becomes like mainstream. And I think it's gonna pass a lot of these games like Axie Infinity, like, a lot of other games that have advertised as being what we're doing, but they don't have the infrastructure even laid down yet to create a game like that.
I mean, I'm not involved in every single game out there, but, I have never really seen any P&E game or P2E game in this space, like at this level, like thinking this deeply from the get-go. I can't speak to Axie Infinity. I'm sure like now they have some big brain things coming, but I can't even imagine that they started out like this level of deep thinking going into the game. they're probably thinking this deep after the fact, or probably, who knows, copying things from like Pixelcraft and like how they're thinking now. So, I love how Pixelcraft is playing long-term games. It makes me happy as somebody who's invested a significant amount of funds into this game. But speaking to like, some of the things you said about early Bitcoin days, I mean, this cool shit is like what it has been about since getting into Bitcoin 2012, 2013. I've been waiting for like, just cryptocurrency to evolve this far out, and it's still got so much more to go. But I mean, the gentleman talking tonight, I forget his name, but he sounded like an older dude. I mean, because I think he was trying to talk about Winamp early on when he couldn't remember the name of like the music like program or whatever that he was trying to talk about. And lots of people here are young and probably never even heard of it, or maybe like just was it like their first thought. But I mean, there's people like huge age range, like 40, 50-year-olds working on this game. Then you have 20-year-olds. I'm in my mid 30s, so when I found out about Bitcoin, I was like 25, 26. So it's crazy the timelines already that like it took to get to this point in cryptocurrency. And then it's going to be another 10 years, like plus, maybe decades of this game being played over and over. And that's what just blows my mind. Like games are now going to games have already been surviving that long. You have World of Warcraft Classic, et cetera. Like I remember playing World of Warcraft when I was in college, and now it's like popular again. And, I feel like this game's just going to be a whole another world that's going to go on for decades, really, really deep thinking, long-term vision.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, decades from now, the game might not even be recognizable. Right now, we have 9 levels to like every structure, but who says there's not going to be like 9 more levels, and then maybe not 9 more levels after that, and each iteration is going to look a lot more different. So we might look back, 20 years from now, if whoever's still playing, the OGs of the game are going to look back and say, damn, I remember when a lodge looked like that, when there was nothing on the land, when everything was bare, there's like no like media related experiences. It's going to look a lot different. And I think we are like in the very early, like we are the OGs, even if you started today, like you're like a core contributor, an early contributor to the game. And
That's a great point. It's super early. We're all OGs. And if you're here right now, like you're mad early. And I remember Bitcoin at $70. I thought I missed the boat. So if you think like you don't have enough gotchis, you don't have enough land, like you probably have way more than you could even imagine. But it's always going to feel like that. The main thing is this, like get in, find your talents and, find ways to contribute to the game and make lots of money in doing so. There's value. Everybody has a talent or skill, and, whether it's bringing people together, whether it's, like art, whether it's, like game mechanics, whether it's, there's so many different things that you can, places for people to contribute to the game. So you're early. Don't sweat it. It's going to be, this thing's going to melt faces, this game.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, speaking to that point with contributions and, creating different types of media, I think some of the things that were interesting that Nyan Kong was talking about were, this ability to have like this antenna structure that'll allow you to like broadcast, whether it's music or, a podcast or whatever. And then he actually spoke on the visual aspect as well, which you were talking about as well, on displaying your NFTs and, creating billboards and being able to see the billboards. I'm curious to know kind of what your guys' individual thoughts are around maybe what type of media related opportunities you might see, like based on what he was talking about.
God, I mean, can you imagine like a Twitter space? I feel like the future Twitter spaces that we're doing right now, we're going to be doing this inside the Gotchiverse. Like, that's pretty cool. So this could be like maybe the last couple months or maybe even the last year we end up doing these spaces like actually here on Twitter, it would make more sense to end up doing these in the Gotchiverse and like meet up with all of our Gotchis too and kind of hang out and then talk shit like we're all doing right now. Like that would be sick.
That would be so cool. And I feel like that would be like another evolution of social media because you're going from like a 1D, like a one-dimensional kind of space, or like a two-dimensional space to more of a 3D space, I guess you could call it, even though it's a 2D world, but there'll be like another dimension you're adding, which is like space. Like you can move around while you're talking. I think that's going to be a big deal.
Absolutely. And this is like, I mean, you guys got to be super excited with District 420 and everything like you guys are doing with your kind of like media expansion, like into the Gotchiverse. And, you know, I think that is going to present a ton of opportunities for you to really get that media out there and content out there. And I mean, the only problem is going to be your own limitation of your own resources and like how much time you have to put into all this. So it's really going to be like, in order to grow, like, in this game exponentially, you have to decentralize yourself. You have to find ways to collaborate with other people. Like you have to figure out ways to like delegate like things to do to other people, find out what their skill sets are, get them to contribute. Like that's how you're going to be able to build faster because there's so much shit to build. Like the only way you're going to be able to like maximize your time is by working and collaborating in this game with other people. And you know, you're going to find people that like don't want to contribute or whatever, but like you have to just like, again, you have to create pathways. You have to make it easier and easier for people to contribute and help you out and overall like, you know, like build your vision or build their vision or whatever it may be. But you have to decentralize yourself in order to expand rapidly in this decentralized environment.
That's a good point to make. And I do feel moments where it's kind of like too much. Like there's, you know, all your time is being consumed by creating content, but you might have ideas for like other types of content you want to create. So it's like about freeing up like resources and giving those resources out to people that might be able to do those things maybe a little bit better, I guess, than you could, which, you know, I think that's where you know, organizations like GMI, where, you know, people are getting together and collaborating on projects is going to be really cool to see. And even within guilds themselves, like I know 8-Bit Gamers Guild, you know, we have a lot of like developers, we have content creators, there's some artists, there's art collectors like yourself. And so like there's going to be a significant effort that's going to be made to collaborate because of the value, like the time value, you know.
Yeah, I find myself overwhelmed too. Like if anybody feels overwhelmed, don't worry about it. Like I'm right there with you 100%. But it's still early, so I'm not like trying, like, again, thank God I have at least the experience of years of like just being in cryptocurrency to know that like there's just so much time ahead to like still work and build things that it's not the end of the world. But like I'm really trying to like, you know, take time to think about how I want to go about like, again, you know, starting off like building and how I can work with other people in 8-Bit and then in other guilds and then other DAOs and like ways to build alliances. And you know, at the end of the day, like this is just, there's a whole world to be created, a whole another universe to be created. So, you know, I don't want me to be my own limits. I want to spread myself out and really just say like, okay, how can we tackle bigger things together? A lot of that is going to be by like, again, first starting to do it myself, working with a couple of the other early guildies, and setting an example to get other people to think deeply, like, oh shit, like I can, like, look, I can make this or I can do that. Like to like let them like kind of feed off the idea and then build upon that idea. And then that's how you kind of create this like inertia and get things off the ground. And they kind of like take their own you know, they take their own they grow at their own rate and they you know, they really kind of become, the idea becomes much bigger than yourself. And that's the main thing, is just start building something, like start doing something. And then like just watch that entropy you introduced into the game, like kind of like, you know, shape and take mold, etc. You're gonna be surprised by how many people get affected by the outputs like from your efforts in this game. And they're gonna take that in and it's going to affect them in certain ways, and they're gonna build upon that idea or that effort that you put into it. I'm just super, goddamn, I'm excited. Holy shit.
Yeah, dang, man. I can feel that. And I also want to shout out to, we got a couple other people up here. We got the Gotchi Emperor, we got Zombie Shepherd, and Thrax have joined us. So welcome, guys.
What's up, guys?
Hey, welcome.
What's up? What's up?
I was going to say, there's going to be such a drive and want to get in this game that it's just going to really drive it really, really fast, I believe.
Yeah, I think Pixel Crop, all they're missing is like one of those fucking Matrix chairs where they just like literally upload your fucking brain into this game. So that way, I can literally just like 12 hours a day, just like take it all in. That's all they need to develop at this point. That's
little Gotchi Neuralink.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yep.
Full-blown Gotchi Neuralink, like into the realm. I just want to go straight through the Great Portal right now.
Hey, quick question though. I was reading the Bible, and when it says only one item, like one wearable per guild, what exactly do you guys think that means exactly? Like, is only one wearable going to be able to be used by one guild at one time, or?
Yeah.
I think there's certain levels and different tiers like that allow you to use multiple, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're going to be able to get multiple wearable crests, but the crest, there's going to be one per week. So say like the wizard staff, for instance, only one guild is going to be able to channel with it per whatever the time period of that crest is. So
it's for 3 months.
It's 3 months now, but they were talking about changing it in the community call, so that's not immutable yet.
Yes.
But yeah, whatever it ends up being, so only the guild holding the crest will be able to channel with it for the time period that they have it.
So it'd be nice to hold like 5 godlikes of the same one.
So all the godlikes.
Yeah, no big deal.
Just like 5 of one godlike item, no big deal.
That's a hell of a guild right there, man.
Yeah, not much of a flex there.
There's a guy that has 2 Hanzo katanas, I believe.
Yeah, and he's got it on my Gotchi, dude. I sold my Gotchi to Goobs, and then that Gotchi got sold to someone else, and he put the Hanzo katanas on it, and he's in the bazaar.
What is he, like dual-wielding Hanzo katanas?
Yes, dude.
Well, you sound pissed, bro. You sound like you're pissed.
I'm not pissed.
Dope,
I'm
though.
so like, holy shit, Fred, is that you? I'm like, oh, man. I'm so proud, man. That's my first Gotchi. That's the first Gotchi I hatched or pulled from a portal or whatever you want to call it. Summoned.
Dang, dude.
You're a proud papa. You're a proud papa.
I'm a proud papa, man.
Well, I'm going to
not
start
expecting that.
My kinship is getting pretty high, so I'm going to start claiming my Gotchis as dependents on my taxes at this point. So, I can get a little bit more of a write-off. That'd be nice.
Nice. Smart.
Well, I feel like if you tell your accountant that you and this thing are inseparable, you might be able to get the point across.
Will that allow me to claim head of household if me and my Gotchi are inseparable? I'm technically his caretaker, right?
I mean, I think it's a strong argument. You could also argue that, you're in some sort of domesticated relationship with maybe one of your Gotchis as well, and, might be some benefit there tax-wise, no futuristic. That might kind of fill the void of the previous lost girlfriend.
Yeah, although I did have I had a Gotchi named Ashley, but I threw her in the vault because she was getting out of hand. No, I'm kidding. That's a bad joke.
Oh man, it's good. But I know we have Zombie Shepherd and we got Thrax up here. You guys are both kind of pretty prominent members like in the Aavegotchi community, and you have your own styles of media that you create. So I was wondering, if you had any thoughts around what Nyan Kong was saying, with some of the things he was talking about, if it gave you like any ideas or anything like that.
Personally, I came in a little bit later. I heard a lot of alpha in the few minutes that I was there, though. What did he tell you guys? Like, what did I miss? Every time I talk to him, it's like an ultra download of information.
Yeah, he was talking about his role with the whole development process and how you'll be able to do different things in the Gotchiverse, and he also touched on the transport system, which I thought was really interesting. He was thinking of like 3 different ways you might be able to get around the Gotchiverse Like he gave an example of like a bus that you'd be able to ride on versus like like a subway style transportation system, or like a parcel hopping ability as well, was I think the other thing he had brought up.
Dude, yeah, they're thinking about so many mechanics. It's insane. I don't know how they have like the attention span for this. Like they have so many different things going on at the same time, and they're developing them all kind of simultaneously. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting how their team is coming together and they can still create a cohesive product with all these little things that they have to work on. So it works, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, how big is their team right now? He said
like,
double the size when he came in, but like, how big is it right now?
Well,
I don't know all of them, to be fair.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't know as much, but I think last time I heard it was 30, but now that was like many months ago. So
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think he
more
just said
than
it was double what it was when he went in, but we don't know what that original number was. I did have the idea when you were talking about like the Twitter Spaces and the Gotchi Lodge, though. I don't know if anybody's used like Gather.town, but it's like got that Super Nintendo look, and it's kind of like Google Meets, and there's booths and different areas, and if you're like sitting at a booth, the only people that can hear you talking are the people at the table or the booth with you. But there's also a stage where you could get up on stage and everybody in the room can hear you, even if they're in a booth, kind of thing. So you could have stuff like that in the lodge where, there's selective areas of being like you could duck off into your little booth and have a secret discussion.
Yeah, it could be like, being at a Gotchi pub, like having a conversation amongst a smaller group, or you could be like town hall of like Gotchi Square and like have more
Exactly.
like public facing like Twitter Spaces. Like that's pretty sick.
oh
Exactly.
dang.
Like I
I
can
didn't even think
imagine
of
like the
that.
little statutes, the little Shelling Point like statutes. I think I saw like a 3D like modeling of one the other day. It looked like a horse or something like that. Like those are going to be like cool little like meetup places. I think like that where some of that public kind of like discussion might take place maybe.
Yeah, I could see that happening. And that's a really good point you brought up, Zombie Shepherd, with having like these little more private conversations versus having more of like a stage, or like like a concert style setup where you have a huge audience and maybe a few people.
Yeah, could you imagine going into your guild lodge and there's 100 people like trying to talk, and you're just like, everybody shut the fuck up a second. I'm trying to talk here. Like there's got to be some kind of order to it,
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'm sure they're going to put a lot of thought into that. And I think that's actually something we didn't really get around to, was talking about the interior kind of functions. But I wanted to ask him kind of like, what would like an art gallery setup look like? What would like a DJ setup kind of look like? I wonder if they put thought into these things, because they are different kind of setups in terms of how you want to run that event.
Yeah, I mean, if they were gonna do, I don't know if you've seen like gallery.io, but that's kind of like much higher graphic resolution. So, like in DCL, when you want to go to an NFT, you have to click out of the world. You can see it on the wall, but to buy it or to view it fully, you have to click out into OpenSea or whatever.
Yeah, and so I wonder if it's going to be like that, where you have to click on it and then it goes to a separate interface, and then that's where you can view the NFT and interact with it in your, you're still in your lodge, but you're kind of almost like on a 2D page when you're looking at it. Or is it going to be more like, these NFT pieces of art are going to be on the wall and you just kind of walk by and maybe you'll be able to zoom in like in the world while you're still in the lodge and zoom into the thing. Those are things that I want to talk to him about. But, that's something I might bring up next time he's on here.
Well, even with the streaming channels he was talking about, were those like the waiting room, or is that also going to be things within the lodge? Because I've been thinking about that for a long time, is being able to stream into the lodge, because then it's not just Twitter Spaces at that point. You could put on TV shows. You could have, you know, private guild meetings where you got things up, you know, you're streaming your PowerPoint or whatever, and you got your whole Excel spreadsheet of the guild plan for the next 3 months or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's another point. Or, doing like maybe you can have like an Inception thing where it's like you're live streaming your Twitch stream of you playing in the Gotchiverse to one of your lodges. So like, if you're in that lodge, you can see that player, playing in the Gotchiverse. Like they might be out in the grid, like harvesting Alchemica, but you could tune in into the safe part of the Citadel in the lodge, and you could like watch Aavegotchis collecting Alchemica and trying not to get whacked by
Hold on.
liquidators. Yeah, so many good ideas around that. This was like really good conversation. Even, after he left and just following up on some of the points, I think I have more background. I'm sure all of you do too. But at this point we're kind of coming up on our kind of normal 2-hour point. So I wanted to ask you guys if you have anything you want to announce for like this coming week. If you have any events or anything, I think it'd be a good time for that.
I mean, I don't have anything specific this week, but every week we have poker, and you guys, hopefully you'll be coming, No Future in Hefe, to one of the games, and you're going to be on one of your spaces at some point. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, 100%.
How do you get to the poker?
Here, let me, I'll get Goobs' tweet. So basically you buy a chip that lasts for the whole month, and every week you get to play a game, and the top 3 places get prizes within Aavegotchi. So it can be anything from like tickets, wearables. If we have enough people, it could be like land, things like that.
Very cool.
It's awesome. Gotta check it out. Is that the Gotchi Mafia guild? Is that the
Yes.
one? Okay. Yeah, I think I just jumped in that Discord last week, but I gotta come and actually check out a poker game. So looking forward to when I get the time. It's just been a little bit busy lately. Got like a kid on the way, so a lot of stuff trying to get what Gotchi stuff I can get in, without losing my entire family.
Never that, man.
But yeah, I have an announcement. Nothing crazy, but just 8-Bit Gamers Guild. We still have some enrollments left open for Keck Lords. There are a few Pepagotchis left. I sent out another 3. I think. So don't miss the chance to. Well, the raffle's over, but we still have a few more Keck Lord memberships spots open. Some people have been asking me if they can still join. We have some latecomers, some people that have been out of town, traveling, etc. So if you guys are looking to get a Pepagotchi NFT still, please jump in the Discord, fill out the white list in the whitelist channel, or reach out to me or Master Yang. We'll be happy to help and pick up your Pepagotchi, and we'll be dropping some stuff this week, probably with respect to some just divvying out different like committees and ways to contribute to the guild, etc. Probably do like our first snapshot soon, and then we have like I think another portal opening coming up soon. I just don't know the date, but Mastering will probably post something about it in the Discord if you guys come check it out. So don't miss out on the Pepagotchi. Got some really cool things coming up for this NFT in the works. So again, that's all I got to announce. Thank you for hosting this chat tonight. Hefe, No Futuristic, really, really good one. It just wasn't us kind of jerking off to ourselves as usual. This one had a lot of great information into it. So it was awesome. Thank you.
Put me down for one of those Keck Lord memberships, man.
Yeah, me too.
Come on in. Come in the Discord, you guys, just because, it's the only way we can keep track of it. I think there's a channel that says like
I'm in there
Whitelist,
already.
but,
I'll just
but I mean, look,
I'll
if you
do
buy it for Ghost, I think it's like, 200 ghosts for 400 something bucks. If you go like, into like right now they're trading, I think one went today in XCP for $1,700. So on Counterparty and in XCP, they're trading already like getting close to $2,000 per Pepagotchi. So like if you join up the membership, like literally you're making money just by buying it in Ghost. So it's a really good deal.
Very, very good.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah. Dr. Wagner, so you unmute. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, thanks again for hosting, guys. I could listen to Nyan Kong talk all day. I feel like he drops as much alpha as anybody does. Just wanted to do a quick announcement. We should have VGhost listed on QiDao in the next 24 hours. And with that should be at least 250K of my to borrow against your VGhost if you guys are VGhost holders. And we're working on some big brain stuff to hopefully create and increase incentives, Chi incentives, which should be coming out too over the next couple of weeks. So a lot going on, but keep an eye out for that if you want to be able to leverage your Gotchi and VGhost exposure.
Love what you're doing at Gotchi Vault there. That's going to be really cool to be able to do that and finally use some of Mark Zeller's French charts that he's been leaking.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty wild, and there's even some like much crazier stuff coming like really soon. We're going to leverage a lot of Ghost, I think, and we have some really cool building blocks with Aave, Ghost, and VGhost plus QiDao. So I think we're about to really be able to move enough leverage in into Ghost to move the Ghost price. So I'm hoping we can help the rocket that's about to come.
So it's official. I need to go buy more Ghost.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no one left to sell.
Yeah, that's an old headline. We're all underexposed to Ghost. Like, I'm tied into mostly assets at this point. I think I have 29 Ghost staked at this point because I own so much crap ready for rarity farming in the game. So I need more Ghost.
I have a left kidney if anybody needs one.
I am a doctor, and I'm just telling you to keep the kidney, just for what that's worth.
I think there's going to be...
I don't know.
You can list it on the Bazaar soon, Pepe.
GBM option for my kidney, yes. I think I've gotten most of the good work out of it at this point, so there's probably more upside on the Gotchiverse plot than my kidney.
I'll bid on that.
Well, this has been good, guys. I have one more announcement for myself. On Thursday, we managed to get an interview, like a GotchiSpace style interview with YGG, like the OG play to earn guild in the space. I think they have almost $1 billion in like assets like tied up, I think. Or maybe more than that. I don't know. But they are a huge guild, and they've agreed to do an interview with us on Thursday. So I'll be doing a GotchiSpace here on Thursday with them I'll get the time out there for you guys. I believe it's 6 p.m. Eastern though. And 6
p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. Yeah, so 6 p.m. Eastern we'll be doing that. And then on Friday we have another episode of District 420 podcast. And so that'll be another fun thing going on. And then we have our regular Saturday hangouts and our Sunday GotchiSpace every Sunday at 7 p.m. So that's kind of like the programming for this week around Aavegotchi.
Yeah, plus we also have I'll probably be covering the stress test on Tuesday, and then we'll have our first round, the first snapshot from round 1 of Season 3 Rarity Farming, so I'll probably cover that as well. Also, just a little, because we're talking about Gotchi Vault, there's a fun clip that I cut up from the last episode of District 420 that is on my profile on Twitter, where we get into a discussion about Aavegotchis and liquidators, and we came to the realization that Bearded is a liquidator. So it's a fun little clip. You can watch for full context the whole conversation in the fuller episode, which is on Anchor and Spotify. But we take a deep dive into whether Bearded is a liquidator or not, based on his history of liquidating QiDao vaults.
It's a very controversial topic, but it's definitely worth listening into and getting the background on it. But yeah, if that's what we got for this week, if we don't have anything else, then I want to wish everyone has a good week next week, and despite everything else happening in the world, just keep your head down, keep building, and keep working on cool shit, because we're all going places. So yeah, Gotchi Gang.
Take it easy, everyone.
Yeah, man. Y'all have a good weekend.
Good night, everybody.
Take it easy, guys.
Take care, friends.
Hey, you guys have a great night. Thank you very much for letting me talk, and thank you for the answers.
Of course. Take care.